Hello, my fellow readers. I, Dark Symphony 777, with another pair of fanfiction reviews. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. This, as well as leaving any suggestions for future fanfictions you want me to read or review. And finally, this is my opinion. This is my opinion is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. So, two stories I'm doing. The first story I'm doing a review of today is Teeth and Claws by Unmoving Great Library. It is a Toho Project fanfiction, and I have to say, the story feels just incomplete. That's honestly what I have to say about this story, and also the second story I'm doing, which is Hello Boss, Forgotten Adoption. They both have the same core issue where they just feel half complete. Like, we're not getting a full story, we're just getting half a story. Now, I will say, with these two stories, they're not bad. They do, but they do have some flaws. So I'll start with Teeth and Claws. The plot for this story is Rimu, Sane, and Marissa are hunting a Weasel Yokai. I think they call it Kamatachi. And Rimu takes a shot in the gut and basically spills her guts out. And now she's dying. Yukari shows up and asks Rimu, "Be my Shikigami," to which Rimu decides to agree. So, while Rimu is dying, Yukari comes up, asks Rimu, "Be my Shikigami." Rimu actually agrees to that before actually dying. And so, Yukari and Ran decide to revive her by giving her some of Yukari's blood, doing like a ceremony sort of ritual thing to basically allow Rimu to come back to life at the cost that she loses her humanity. She's now a yokai. And the story is all about Rimu having to live with that and trying to figure out how all that's going to work. And it's fine for what the story is trying to tell, because you have Rimu becoming a yokai, her just completely confused, getting some clothes, just struggling with the fact that she can no longer be the shrine maiden anymore. Eventually decides to be Yukari Shikigami. The fact that now she has to eat humans just throws her for a loop, and actually just is completely kills her on the inside, because she doesn't want to do that, because it's like losing another piece of herself. And also trying to deal with the new Shrine Maiden, who's also very extreme in her reviews regarding yokai and not understanding nuance, basically like what Rimu does, because despite being a yokai exterminator, her shrine gets like a lot of yokai visitors, mainly Suika, who lived there for a time, because drunk Oni fun. Eat your funnies, little funny lolly. Oh boy. So, that being said, I do think, from a plot standpoint, it feels incomplete. Because if we actually go to the end of the story just kind of ends with the whole thing with the Shrine Maiden being resolved by Rimu kind of just teaching her lessons, saying you gotta learn not to rely on force all the time, because guess what? It's gonna get killed eventually. Especially if the yokai's not doing anything, like the Shiko even beat up Bryson because she was, for some reason. Right. What she had to do to Bryson? It's because the ears. Bryson's best girl. She deserves all the head pets. Pet the bunny. Pet the bunny. Oh, the bunny. The cute bunny. Fuck Tay. and Rimu just taking up the Yukumo name. It just is like, oh, it's just, oh, that's it, huh? I was expecting more. Yeah, I can't really properly review a story when the big issue is it just half the story feels like it's missing. Like, we have the whole thing with Rimu becoming a yokai. Okay, that's fine. Yukari offering her a job as a Shikigami, basically being her sword and shield, basically being my protector, but also the one I have to send to deal with issues that you wouldn't normally deal with. Because there are some yokai that would just completely kill Rimu because Rimu wouldn't be able to physically do much against them. Or they don't give a fuck about the spell card rules. Unlike, say, Romelia Scarlet, who's like, ha ha ha, I will now unleash my master plan. What is your master plan, mistress? Yes, my master plan is I will blot out the sun with red mist to make it personal. Isn't that a little too showboaty? No! Why are you doing this? So I can walk around in the sun. It's covered in mist. No! Let me have this. Sakuya, let me have this. The whole thing is just you trying to separate her as a yokai from her as a human, and eventually realizing she has to leave the human half behind because she's no longer human. But I think is a decent character arc, but similar to the plot, it just cuts out halfway because it just feels like we're only getting half of Rimu's character. It's like, oh, Rimu's character arc is pretty much about to get started. Nope. Just end the story right as it gets going. That hurts. Yukari's fine. I think Yukari is the type of character that works well when you don't know what's going through her head most of the time. Unlike, that's the thing with Toho. Most of the time, the vagueness is actually starting to work against Toho because when you make so much vague, you're wanting at least something, anything. But then with Yukari, it actually makes 100% sense for her to have a lot of vagueness because the whole thing is Yukari runs Gensokyo. Yukari probably has the single most broken ability in the entire franchise. She has the ability to manipulate boundaries. Except that's actually deliberately vague, and it actually kind of works because the fuck is a boundary? Oh, Yukari can manipulate the boundary of anything relative to each other, like life and death, or hot and cold, or love and lust, love and hate. Yeah, she can just completely fuck with that anytime she wants to. She's ridiculous. She is monstrously overpowered, and also the fact that she's I don't know, like a master tactician. She's like, oh, here's the plan she wants you to see. Oh, what are you about the 20 other plans she has up her sleeves or behind her back? Oh yeah, you won't see those coming because she already knows you might not see them coming. Yes. Yes. Very smart. Yukari works with this vagueness. And I even like the fact that the story goes out of its way to kind of peek behind the curtain, but not all the way, so she still keeps that sense of vagueness. So it's like, okay, you get a little bit of Yukari, but not a lot. Enough that you at least get the fact that she kind of genuinely cares for Rimu. She wouldn't do this for anyone. She did this because she genuinely wants Rimu to be safe. She wants to save Rimu and fall in love with Rimu. And also the fact that Yukari also has Ron and Yuyuko as well, so she got a harem. Yes, the fluffy tails and the bouncy and Yuyuko's bouncy. Oh, compel you. Yuyuko has boobs, you must obey! No, wait. Yukari has boobs, so you must obey too! Well, at least Ron has fluffy tails. 9 fluffy tails. Mofo. And it's just... So she cares for Rimu. She genuinely loves Rimu. They even a little reference to Maribel Hearn with when they later in the story where they go out into the human world. Oh, Yukari is like, oh, everyone in town thinks I'm like I'm an eccentric businesswoman. It's like, oh yeah, this family, the Hearn family, let me take care of their house every once in a while. And she somehow knows how to drive a car. Like, yeah, Mary, you do that. Of course, as you know, the whole idea of behind this is the whole theory is a character named Maribel Hearn eventually becomes Yukari somehow, and then this is basically just playing up that theory. We even get little. The story even gets like a little timing issue because we're introduced to the Great Tengu and he's like this big hulking man, but then canonically in Toho, we are actually introduced to the Great Tengu. It was like Megumu and like, yeah, exactly what I want to picture the Great Tengu. A chick in blue who likes to whack people with a tripod. Yeah. Nice! And, you know what? Grammar-wise, fine. Pacing-wise, it's fine. It's just, there's not much I can talk about because of the simple fact that I can't really say much because it's only half a story. I don't even know how to recommend it because what we have is good. Like there's nothing wrong with the story, but I can only say so much when it just feels so incomplete. Do I have a favorite part? Yeah, Rimu messing with the new Shrineman. I just heard, oh, I got her learning, like, oh, I have to actually think as a yokai. So basically, it's like, okay, so how am I going to think as a yokai to get her to take her lesson? Oh, act like a humongous dick to have her say, please use spell card, and when she tries to use force, basically say, okay, fuck that. Tanks all the damage, basically wraps her arms around Shiko's arms, puts her mouth over her neck, saying, huh? I gotcha. Backs away. Say, why did you kill me? Said, I could have killed you, but I didn't. And basically teach her a valuable lesson. It's a neat little thing. But that also hammers down the home of the story being incomplete because the story kind of leaves off the cliffhanger and say, hey, we'll take you home. I'll teach you how to do this business. You know, having Rimu be like the teacher role, that would have been neat to see. What would I do to fix this? Just finish. Just add more. You had so much potential for this. That's really it. So now we're gonna move on to Hello Boss Forgotten Adoption. So this is a story written by the True Psychopath. Now I actually have reviewed this author's stories before. He actually asked me to review this story as well as another story. It's gonna come out in a little bit because after this story I only have like 4 fan fictions I have left to review this year. Yeah, four more likely is most likely. Maybe 5, maybe more, depending on what happens. But this story has a similar issue to the previous story. Doesn't feel complete. So, what is this story about? Well, it's about these two people, Jin and Velvet. They are just a normal father and daughter, and they get sucked up into hell, where they basically try to escape. That's basically the plot. It's not a complicated plot. It's just literally they just end up in hell. They want to get out. There's some teenage angst going on. That's it. And for what it is and what it's trying to do, I don't think it's bad. Now, I will preface this by saying I don't give a single fuck about Hello Boss. I don't care about Busy Pop at all. I think I don't like the idea behind Hello Boss's writing. Personally, I'm not a fan of stories that are used too much curse words to act as shields to kind of hide bad writing. Because that's honestly what I think of both Hello Boss and Hazbin Hotel. They just use too much cursing to hide what is essentially bad writing. Because look at South Park. Yes, they curse a lot too, but they don't. But they also have long moments where they don't really curse at all. So it's like, oh, here's a smattering of curses here and there. Depending on the episode, they may curse more. Depending on the episode, they may curse less. I know, Make Love Not Warcraft, that doesn't have a lot of cursing, and it's like regarded as one of the best episodes of the show. This show, Hell of a Boss, just has so much cursing. I just don't like it. That's not for me. If you like it, you like it. That's fine. I personally don't like it. Bygones be bygones. In the context of this story, I think it is done as good as it could be, because we have the sense of Jin and Velvet just trying to get out, and they're wandering around the area of Pride, and they meet Stolas at Octavia, and then they eventually meet Asmodeus near the end. And there's a lot of there's just the chapters are very short and simple. I think they're fine for what it is. However, it does have one issue besides feeling half complete that I have, and that has to do with the characters, Jin and Velvet. They don't. With this type of story, you have to try and be invested with the characters. And when I read this first chapter, it did nothing to get me invested in Jin and Velvet's character. Because how the story starts is Jin mumbling to himself while measuring a corner of a house. Him being angry, then Velvet coming in, being angsty. They talk. They don't even act like a father and daughter, and then they just get sucked up into hell. That's not really a lot to get us invested in these characters, because it's so short and so quick, because this is where it starts, and this is It's actually much farther in the story than I remembered. Because I actually read the story walking to and from work. It's longer than I realized, but it's still not enough to really get us invested. It's like, you know what? I'll rescind that there wasn't a lot of context behind it. I still don't care about Jin and Velvet. I will admit that I was wrong, because I remember wrong how much of this first chapter is on focusing on their character. Because let's see, yeah, it's like half of that's like half the story. Yeah, that's like half of the chapter. It's longer than I realized, but probably not as long as it should have been. Honest. But yeah, Velvet is fine-ish. She's basically acts like a stereotypical teenager. I don't really see much wrong with that. Tropes are tools. They're not a guideline. They're tools, and they can be misused handily. I think as a stereotypical angsty teenager, that was fine. She could have been much worse, but she could have been much better. Same thing with Jin. He basically comes off as a very overprotective parent with some anger issues. But we're not given that. But we're not giving that much on it in the beginning, because he only has like one slight outburst. Blurted angry is like, yeah, that's something to be angry about, but not really that. And then he just kind of snarks around with Velvet. for most of the conversation. So I actually completely didn't even realize at first that they were father and daughter. I actually thought they were like friends or boyfriend girlfriend or something like that. Or they mentioned it and I just completely forgot because just how little they actually act like father and daughter until they actually get into hell. But I do think, yeah, I think Jin's the weaker of the two characters. I think that there's more that the author wants to do with Jin, because again, it cuts off at like a weird spot where it ends with what was it, Angel wanting to use Jin for like some purpose, probably something like an eighth sin, so that way they can kill everyone in hell. And like he goes like, and he tries like, oh, I can bring you to Earth. It's like, I just want my daughter. It's like, but she's a hellhound. She's my daughter. You only knew her you only knew her for 4 years. She's my daughter. I want her alive. And that's right. That's right. Give me my daughter back. Fine. I'll give you your fucking daughter. There. She arrived. Peace. And then just ducks out. And talks to another angel about the eighth sin. So Jin is more important. But again, it just feels like it's just cut off in the middle. And that's supposed to be the end? I don't know. I don't hate the story. I don't hate the characters. Jin is just could have been worse, but could have been done better. He's fine for what the author is trying to do with him. I think it would have been better to have a chapter before this, kind of just as having like 2 parts where you see them in like, I don't know, doing anything by themselves to give us like a baseline what you want, what we're expecting out of the characters, and knowing how much they actually care about each other. Despite all that, it would at least give us time to get invested. Yeah, it would have been it would have been better, honestly. I think grammar wise, this story has a lot of grammar errors. That's just kind of how it is. Pacing wise, I actually have nothing wrong with pacing. I think it's actually paced pretty well. Sentence structure, it's very short, to the point, very grotesque, but I think that's what Hell of a Boss is. So I think the author is trying to emulate the writing style of Hell of a Boss, and I think it did a good enough job. Again, I'm not too familiar with Hell of a Boss. I'm more familiar with Has Been. And I know they have similar writing styles. So I'm going off like guesses. I'm basically going off of assumptions and stuff like that. I think it's fine. Would I recommend this story? That's a tough one, because at least with Teeth and Claws, the issue doesn't really extend past, it just feels incomplete. This one, you have Velvet and Jin not really getting invested into. However, that could be more of a personal thing, because I know there's probably like people who read the story and say, "Oh, I think they're fine. I think they're worth investing into." I personally don't think they're worth investing into. I think the better call would have been give them a chapter to at least introduce them to us without all the hell escapes. I think that would have been fine. Favorite part? No, I don't really have one. Would I recommend it? I still haven't figured it. I just realized I skipped what I recommend it. I went straight to my favorite part. on one hand, on one hand, it it does have a more basic premise than Teeth and Claws. Because Teeth and Claws' premise kind of requires more depth. Well, this is just they just want to get out of hell. So much invest. there's not really much investment in the plot to get behind. But on the other hand, I don't care for Gem Velvet. You know what? Yeah, let's go on the side of caution. I would recommend it. I wouldn't. I would be very hesitant to recommend it because I don't. There are so many unknown factors over the whole thing with this specific story. Because again, I don't hate it. I just I get the reasoning behind Velvet and Jin's character. I just they're just a tougher sell on me because we're just I personally just not giving enough time to get invested in their characters to really to get invested in the story. It'd be a simple fix if the author did fix it. Just make a chapter for this. I said it before. That'd be it. But as for why I'm recommending the story, I think outside of of investing in the characters, I think it's actually handled slightly better in terms of investment than Teeth and Claws because of the more simple plot and simple characters. And even the whole it kind of cuts off in the end kind of feels more like an actual sequel hook than cutting himself off in the middle. Because for the most part, it's really only like one plot line that feels incomplete, and that's basically why the Angels want to do with Jin in the first place. But with Teeth and Claws is like several plot points, so the pros and cons. I think as a whole, I would recommend it, but I do think this is a story that you kind of need to be familiar with Hello Boss to understand. Because I sure as hell don't really understand it as much as I probably would have. Just it's a guess. But yeah, that is Teeth and Claws and Forgotten Adoption. This has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.